places we love, we must vote. But first, let's start at the beginning. Here, 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 and here. Our country claims to be built on a lot of things: ideals, law, truth. But the one thing that's perfect, what America's actually built on, is the land. This land, this land, this land, this land. For some of us, our ancestors have been here forever. Others arrived centuries ago. Others did not choose to come here at all. And others were simply our parents looking to give us new opportunities. But despite our different paths, we all converged here, on this land, not made for you or for me, but for everyone. You see, the land is our common ground. The mountains, the slopes, the forests, the crags, and the coasts. The places we play and the places we escape to. We cannot continue to allow our seasons to shrink, our rivers to be polluted, our skies to warm, and our forests to burn. So we must rally around the other thing that unites us, our right to vote. Because no matter who you are, if you love the land, you are a member of the outdoor state. 50 million people strong, not defined by borders or party lines, but by passion for places we love, bigger than any other state and more powerful too, but only if we vote. So let's stand for our common ground, whether our common ground looks like this, or this, or this. If you love the land, it's time to make a plan to vote. Make your plan to vote at makeadamplan.org.
Hello, friends. I'm Graham Zimmerman here with Protect Our Winners, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Send the State series. This is presented by Protect Our Winners, and it's supported by Rock and Ice. They're actually giving away some subscriptions this evening, so if you're signed in, you're automatically entered in that drawing. I think we've got 2 to give out, which is sweet. And this evening, I am very excited to have Angela Haas here talking about climate, mountain guiding, relationships with mountains, and all of these things that we adore. Angela is the president of the American Mountain Guides Association. She is a mountain guide with a capital M, which means she's been through all of the rigorous training through I think it's the IFMGA. And she's climbed and guided all over the world. And she's also been on our POW climb team for 4 years now. So this is her second major election with the team. So Angela, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your stories. We appreciate you and can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Stoked, Graham. Thanks. Thanks for the intro. We'll see you on the other side. Hey folks, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate your time. I know we're all pretty presented and zoomed out, but I'm really thrilled to share my story and how I love the land, how I've come to love it, and how I really feel like I have a huge stake in what happens and what happens with this election. So I want to pump you up to vote if you haven't, and again, welcome you tonight. I want to start off with a land acknowledgement. The land that I stand on is ancestral land of the Ute people. It was stolen from the Ute people, and I honor the sacred hunting grounds that extend across Southwest Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Oklahoma, Arizona, and New Mexico. And I think it's important that we honor all the land that we stand on and the heritage from which it came. And I'm going to share with you a lot of different land tonight, but I want to just honor where I am here in Southwest Colorado, calling in from Ridgway, where my home is. And I want to tell you a little bit about my story. This picture isn't in Southwest Colorado. This picture is on the enclosure in the Grand Teton, but it's got a very special sacred ring there that they believe came from Native Americans. And it's one of my favorite places in all of the world, and I've spent a lot of time there. So I wanted to open it up with that show, with that photo. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, about my place in the world, and about climate, and how I feel empowered. And then I want to pump you guys up to get out and vote if you haven't. My story is a rather long one, but I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm an IFMGA guide, like Graham said, and I have been guiding for 30 years. I started as a climber and a skier and an alpinist, and that has certainly enriched my life and taken me to places which I never imagined. And look at me now. I'm the president of the American Mountain Guides Association. I couldn't be more proud. And so that's been the evolution of about 30 years. I have, I'm not a professional athlete, but I have a number of sponsors. And I have some accomplishments I'm super proud of. I've been at it for 30 years. I was the sixth woman in the United States to become an IFMGA guide. I've led over 35 high altitude expeditions. A lot of those expeditions I've done a number of service work projects, from cleanups to removing oxygen bottles from Mount Everest to giving back, raising money to start schools for girls in the Himalaya, and that's kind of been a big part of my work for a long time. And it's been really awesome to hook up with POW and do this type of giving back, which I really believe in right now is the thing we all need most. I was the AMGA Guide of the Year in 2011. A little known fact, I have a master's degree in international mountain conservation, and my background is in natural history. I'm a total nature lover, and one of the things I love about guiding is I've been able to facilitate trips of a lifetime and help people achieve their goals. And I don't even know how many clients over the last 30 years that I've worked with, but it certainly has enriched my life. So to become an IFMGA guide, my training is through the American Mountain Guides Association. We're a member association of the IFMGA, and you have to be certified. You have to be certified and trained at high level rock climbing, which, one of the beauties of becoming a guide is you have to have a lot of experience in the mountains, and that takes you to some of the most remarkable places on earth. And I pride myself in having traveled a lot and seen some of our remarkable heritage all over the world. You have to be an alpinist. This is a photo I took guiding ascent of Ama de Blanc about a little over 15 years ago. I worked in the Tetons for EXA Mountain Guides for a long time, and that terrain was my home, and it still just makes my heart sing every time I see the Tetons. Ice climbing is a big part of being an IFMGA guide, part of the Alpine, and certainly near and dear to my heart where my home is. And then ski mountaineering is also a big part of being an IFMGA guide, and we certainly have a lot of that home here in my home in Colorado. This is on Castle Peak in outside of Aspen. And again, one of my joys is really taking people to places they never would have been able to get to. And this is true of all guides. It's a remarkable career to be able to share a lot of these places that are so special with people who come from all walks of life, and it forever changes them. And almost every trip I do, I would say I'm changed by the people that I experience it with. It's pretty awesome. As you can see, it's very near and dear to my heart. So don't get upset. I'm happy. If I'm getting emotional, it's because I'm very happy. So one of the trips that I've loved doing is a trip to Antarctica, where I'm the lead guide. There's 25 guides. It's a trip with Ice Axe Expeditions. We have 100 clients from all over the world. I've done it 8 times. Doug Stout is one of our alliance members, and he leads this trip, and it's remarkable. And it is one of those places that I have witnessed a lot of change, and not just in the environment, but in the people that I take there. and myself when I come back for sure. And this is the Alma de Blum trip I guided, an all women's ascent. We raised $20,000 for the Z Foundation to start a school for girls in the Himalaya. And it, again, you can see the smiles on these gals' faces. The exposure here at Camp 2 is just drop off on all sides, and it's a huge effort to get to some of these places. And it's just there's nothing like a feeling of helping people to get to where they never thought possible. This is an ascent of Elbrus, where the second on the left is Charlotte Fox. I guided her on her last and 7th summit, and it was certainly a super memorable, again, an all-women's trip, and a dream come true for Charlotte, and certainly an honor to be able to share that with her. And again, it's just a remarkable part of the job of being a guide is taking people to these places and keeping them safe and bringing them home and empowering them with more knowledge of themselves and the mountains that and the other people that they've shared it with. And a lot of times there's a lot of early morning starts, alpine climbing, but as you can see, people are pretty pumped up. This is my neighbor who's done a lot of trips with me, and both of her and Bill and Beth are just awesome friends and clients, and you just develop relationships that are priceless. And you take folks who think they can never do the things that they do with you to achieve their loftiest dreams. And you get to show them things that are like remarkable. Like, can you imagine coming around the bend and seeing something like that? And you can see here the ice that's forming this bridge is thousands and thousands of years old, and you can see the snowfall from this year, the clear snow on top of it, another low snow year like we continue to experience in a lot of places. And this is in Antarctica, and a big part of guiding for me is the nature experience and turning people on to penguins and orca whales and leopard seals and things that they wouldn't normally see. These are mountain goats in the North Cascades, frequent friends of climbers and guides up in the North Cascades, Washington Pass area. That it's just super special to share this stuff. And a big part of my work is training guides. And I work for the American Mountain Guides Association as a guide trainer and examiner. Right after this, I'm actually jumping in my rig to drive to Red Rocks out of 10 inches of snow here to sunny, warm rock. And I'm pretty pumped up about that. But this is in the North Cascades, and they're up and coming guides. Working with guides is incredibly rewarding. And it's another way of giving back to my profession and just trying to help use my experience to help people facilitate how to introduce other people to the mountains. And the North Cascades is the only range in the lower 48 that is glaciated, and we use it exclusively for our alpine programs, and the increasing risk that we're experiencing as a result of climate change is a lot of what I want to talk about tonight. And my profession is it's changing, it's getting more dynamic all the time, and it's something that is requiring us to really adapt and think on our feet quickly. And working with guides is awesome. They're all great people. That's why I got into guiding, is because I was really inspired by my mentors. And I have the benefit of working with all these super happy, awesome people that love their jobs and love doing what they do. And couldn't be happier about that. This is me. This is a pretty old picture. I think this is 1984. My first ever mountain. I grew up in West Virginia, and I climbed trees as a kid all the time, but didn't know anyone that climbed rocks or anything. And I went to Prescott College and took an got into the outdoor education program, and this was my first outdoor course. And the summit that I'm on here is the summit of Mount Snowdon in the San Juan Mountains, which is literally 10 miles as the crow flies from here. and it certainly changed my life forever. And in this little rig, we had countless adventures with Prescott College, and Prescott has really cranked out a lot of outdoor professionals and guides, and it's quite an experience to have gone there. And it brought me to here where I am. It brought me to here why I guide. It brought me to here where I live, what my values are, all that. So my first experience here in the San Juans was in 1984, and we came back in the winter and visited the town of Ouray, which is 10 miles from where I live, which is famous for its ice climbing. I'm sure everyone's aware of. How many people have been to Ouray? I'd be curious how many folks have been there, but let's definitely throw that in the chat, and love to know if you've experienced any changes yourself with ice climbing in Ouray. But I came there before the ice park was created, and it was a ghost town. There was one bar, you could get a burger, one hotel open, and it was like closed for the season because there was no winter economy. And some really clever climbers crafted the Ouray Ice Park, and it has changed Ouray into a year-round economy, which is thriving because of the ice park. And it really is a place where guides from all over the world and guides from all over the U.S. congregate every ice season, because there's a lot of people that come to ice climb and they want to learn from a professional. And it's an amazing community to live here. And that's really why I moved here, because I started guiding ice back then. And that I could see a full-time possibility in winter work as well as summer work in the San Juans. And it was a place that I had come to know very well from all my Prescott College experiences. And I was, I knew I would end up here someday. And the San Juans have certainly captured my heart. It's not the best rock in the world, but it has other endearing parts, which it has great skiing. Even though we have the worst snowpack in the world, we do have some great winter skiing here. And this is where I learned how to do all this, and there's no place I'd rather spend my winters, for sure. But I did branch out and had the opportunity to do a couple trips to the Himalaya when in the late 80s, and then into the Karakoram twice in the early 90s. And that really hooked me on glaciers. Like, I really didn't have a lot of glacier experience before then. And when I set foot on my first glaciers, I knew that was, we were going to have a long relationship. And this is a picture of me in front of Kedarnath Dome in India in '88. And you can see by the old Koflak boots and the classic British tights that was the era at the time. I think Mug Stump and Billy Westbay were on Shivling right next to us. And we had quite the experience. And so when I came home from a lot of these trips, I sought out more glaciers and more opportunities with less travel closer to home. And the North Cascades, as I said, is where the largest and only glaciers left in the lower 48 are. And I got a job at the American Alpine Institute, which I had 9 seasons there. And that's Mount Baker in the background. Don't know how many times I climbed Mount Baker, but a lot. And it was one of those wonderful experiences that, you could do with your eyes closed some days. But certainly there were periods of time when things changed, and it wasn't just like a routine to get up the same old glaciers that were relatively straightforward. Mount Baker has a tremendous amount of glaciation on all sides. And these glaciers not only sustain us as climbers, our hearts and souls, and our outdoor endeavors, but they also are vital to all of us, with water sources, with habitat, with all kinds of just really important things that we need to keep on task, because if we lose our glaciers, we're gonna be really in a dangerous place where we're going to heat up really quickly. And as you'll see in some of my slides coming up, there's a lot of change happening up here in the North Cascades. The Grand Teton, I worked here in Grand Teton National Park for Exum for 13 seasons, and this is a picture of the North Face, and you can see this very small little North Face glacier, which is receding at an alarming rate. I climbed the North Face one of the years I worked there, and you can see how wet it is right in the middle, and it was kind of alarming. We were climbing in t-shirts most of the time, and the conditions getting off the glacier were quite challenging and risky because of tremendous amount of like kitty litter stuff from the glacial recession and loose rock, and the whole route was really kind of alarming in terms of how heated up it had gotten, and these snow bands in the middle had deteriorated significantly as well. And then my travels have taken me to the greater ranges as well. In the Alps, I've guided there. This route, the classic Cosmiques Arête, changed a couple of years ago dramatically with a massive rockfall event. And we're just starting to see this all over the world. And it is accelerating at an alarming rate. The Matterhorn in Switzerland, I'm sure most of you have heard of the evacuations. There was one just a couple days ago off the Italian side due to landslides. A couple climbers were trapped and couldn't get across. And one year there was a helicopter evacuation from a lot of people off of the route. And it's at times Switzerland actually closes the Matterhorn because the conditions are off and it's too dangerous. And certainly this is a very serious endeavor to guide, and a lot of guides have died and lost their lives here. But as temperatures are warming, the permafrost that's holding a lot of this rock and the alpine together is melting out, causing really significant rockfall events that are catastrophic. This is outside of Chamonix, looking up across the Chamonix Valley up at the Mont Blanc Massif, and you can see the glacial recession by just the kind of bathtub rings around the bottom of the glaciers and how these slabs are starting to be exposed. And this is one of the centers of guiding and climbing in the world, and things are changing very fast there. And classic routes that were once climbable are no longer safe or feasible. This is the Mont Blanc du Coul with the Massif behind it, and this is the kind of upper section of the Mer de Glace glacier, which is falling apart at an alarming rate. And this is the classic toe of the Mer de Glace glacier over a century ago. And what we see now here is extremely alarming, where the glacier has receded tremendously and pulled back. And all of these, the sides of the moraines here are really dangerous and pose significant challenge and risk getting through, both in the winter for skiing and then for approaches for the climbs. So the nature of things has changed dramatically here with significant loss of mass of these glaciers. And this is walking up the toe of that glacier, and you can see how dark it is. This is the ablation zone where the glacier melts out in the summer, and the dark ice absorbs more heat, which further accelerates its melt. And this is one of the aspects that's really accelerating glacial warming, because we're having winters that don't have as much snow, and we're having hotter off seasons that are accelerating all this melt. And then closer back to home here, this is a classic peak that I've guided a number of times, and it's very commonly guided in the North Cascades. It's called Mount Forbidden, or Forbidden Peak, and it is right in the heart of the North Cascades National Park. And this is a photo on the left courtesy of the Austin Post, and the one on the right, that was taken in 1960, and the one on the right, taken by John Scurlock, was taken in 19, I can't see the date here, 1960, or 2005, and you can see how alarmingly little ice is left. This is the Taboo Glacier, and it is it's just receding at an accelerating rate and causing tremendous hazard. If you can see the cleft in the peak on the left-hand ridge, that's a couloir, which is traditionally used to access the ridge, which is the left-hand skyline of the main peak is the West Ridge. And that couloir melts out very fast every year because it doesn't have any remnant ice left. And the shenanigans to get around that entails quite a bit of rockfall hazard as well as a deteriorating rock. And here's another picture of, you can just see the mass of the loss of the glacier here at the base of Forbidden. And you can see kind of some of the hanging ice that's up and to the right. And this peak is, again, it's commonly guided and climbed. It's one of the 50 classic climbs, and it's changed. It's much more difficult than it used to be. And it takes considerable amount of time and reworking around areas that you didn't have to avoid some of these hazards. And as you can see here, these remnant glaciers are, they're not even moving, they're just breaking up and falling apart and melting, and they pose significant hazard to get on and off the route. And it's increased the risk dramatically. Quite a number of years ago, we lost a guide training, a very famous alpinist in the community on Torment, the face of Torment, when one of these blocks pulled off and crushed him. And it's definitely alarming what's going on here. You can see at the toe of the glacier, you can see these long strips of remnant ice that, you have to pass around this. There's no way you could, traditionally, you would just kind of cross right over all of this glacier. I remember when I first started guiding there, and now you have to go all the way down its right edge, and you have to give it a significant berth around the bottom to skirt this and the hazards of these falling blocks that are also lubricated with the meltwater that's running on the slabs below them. This is another classic route in the Cascades. It's the Torment Forbidden Traverse, which ends on the West Ridge of Forbidden. And when I first did this, it was, we had all kinds of awful rockfall and very firm ice. The photo on the top is the guidebook description describes the crux is getting through a bergschrund on this snow face that's shadowed with this light in the dark, and getting back up to the ridge. And now if you look at the bottom photo, you can see that ice is deteriorated dramatically, and it's a lot of rock in it, melted in it, and then it's also just much more difficult to get through and time consuming as well. So this is another classic route that is quickly going out of shape and has significant increased hazard. And as guides, the unique thing about guides is we spend a lot of time in terrain over and over again. Like I said, I worked for Exum for 13 seasons, and AAI for 9. And throughout those seasons, we do the same route over and over. And no day's different. No day's the same. Every day's different because your clients are different, the conditions are different. But it's becoming really apparent, the witness that we are experiencing as guides as to the effects of climate change in the mountains, and particularly with glaciated terrain, because we do spend so much time in it, season after season, day after day, and routes have changed significantly, which is causing again, much more hazard to the clients. Crossing exposed ice, glacial ice like this is considerably more time consuming to protect your clients. It is much more consequential if there's a fall, and it's not like just walking across the snow where you can self-arrest. It's so the nature of guiding is getting considerably more dangerous. And this is the Silver Star Glacier in the North Cascades and Washington Pass area. And I remember when I first climbed this peak with Outward Bound back in the 80s, this was just a walk up the snow. And even though it doesn't look that steep, these exposed patches of ice are extremely hazardous with clients that could trip over a crampon. So even terrain like this with clients, if you have two, a lot of times you're pitching things out, and again, it's more risk and considerably slower, which more time in terrain in the alpine. For those of you who are alpinists, how many folks here do we have are alpinists that have spent some time in the North Cascades? Let's have a look on the chat and let us know if you've seen and experienced any changes throughout your time there. And again, it takes more time to protect this type of terrain. It's certainly interesting because there's a lot more problems to solve, but in terms of exposure that we have and the time that we spend in terrain, it's significant. And this is the north side of, kind of like the northwest side of Mount Shuksan. And this used to be a very casual walk across the glacier. I think I'm taking this from an ascent of the North Face, but you have to cross this glacier to get there. And you can see all the ablating ice with the brown. It requires having your crampons and protecting it well. And there's, just it's not easy to get across here. And then on the margins, you're dealing with very exposed slabs that a transition from glaciers to glacially polished slabs is quite challenging to manage. And then another thing that I've experienced is the receding glaciers are pulling back from the rock in places. This is the northwest rib of Mount Shuksan, and we had a really close call here just getting onto the rock here. One, you can see it's exposed, and what happens is the rock heats up and it creates these moats that get larger and larger and more difficult to cross as the season goes on, and you sometimes have to rappel down into where you can reach across to the rock and then climb a pitch back up to get across. Sometimes you can just step across, but as our temperatures are warming, these moats are becoming more problematic and extremely challenging to cross. And we had a real close call with a hanging bit of ice that just happened to cut loose from a ledge above that was probably like 4 dump trucks full, that we narrowly missed. And it was an alarming experience. Again, one of those things that we're experiencing more and more. This is back in the Tetons, the getting on the North Face here, where the Grand Teton Glacier is pulled away from the rock. You can see all the rock that is landing on the glacier here, which is causing accelerated melt. And it's just extremely hazardous what's left behind when the ice pulls away from all the abrasion that the ice has caused on the rock. It's very unstable and poses a significant challenge. I think we had 200 feet of very poor climbing before we actually got to the good granite from the glacial recession here. And then another thing we're experiencing is increasing avalanches, and the result of these ice falls, and the glaciers receding is causing a lot of serac fall in places that generally, when I started guiding, a lot of places, not necessarily here, but were fairly safe to cross under. And now with the receding glaciers, we have a lot of unstable hanging ice seracs and increasingly detached, wider crevasses that we're having to manage. This is back home here in Colorado. We've had a number of very unusual avalanche events over the last 10 years, and a lot of them have been extremely significant. 2 years ago, we had a large cycle which produced D4, size 4 avalanches, which is unheard of practically in this area. And these avalanches are coming earlier in the season. They're carrying more mass. The increasing temperatures are really changing the dynamic of the landscape here, which causes significant loss to revenue, not just for guides, but for traffic. This is a section above Silverton on the other side of Red Mountain Pass that you can see where the slide passed over Highway 550, which is a major highway that was closed for 18 days, which was unprecedented, and at least in modern time. And, that caused delays and cancellations, and even AMGA courses were rerouted other places. We happened to be here at that time. Silverton was cut off for days from both sides. And it's these large, unprecedented events that I'm experiencing more and more of. And I wonder if anyone else wants to join the chat and share any avalanche activity that you find unusual that's happened here in Colorado or wherever you are, if you're in a snowpack. And this particular avalanche cycle carried down trees that were 50, 60 years old. And not only did it take significant amount of resources and finances to open the highway because of having to cut through all the timber, it was these highway workers were exposed to risk as they were doing it. And so it's certainly not just my profession. Any snow worker or any outdoor person that's in the mountains in these dynamic times is experiencing some of these changes. And back home with the Ouray Ice Park, we've experienced, I can't say that it's climate change, but everything leads me to believe that it's climate change, that our seasons are significantly shorter, that we're experiencing unusual random and natural icefall events, and that our guides have to leave because there's no work, because the ice melts earlier than it used to. Our seasons become much shorter. The town of Ouray suffers because there's not as much of an economy. And, here in Southwest Colorado, I feel like we're particularly fragile with increasing temperatures, as well as fire danger, as where we are in Southwest Colorado. And my heart goes out to all the folks watching that are experiencing unprecedented fires right now. And if you've also experienced increased fire activity, why don't you join the chat and let us know where you're calling in from, and let us know if you're experiencing that. And the Ouray Ice Fest is certainly brings is a real large revenue generator for the community of Ouray, as well as all the guides in the area. And it's a long-standing tradition now that we have it in January typically. This year it'll be different with the pandemic, but we definitely are challenged with our ability to make ice with warmer temperatures and shorter seasons. And it's really going to be interesting to see what happens in coming years. And I just had to throw this in because this is we just have to laugh at ourselves here when it's a bad year and we want to get out and do our things. And rather than taking our skis off, let's just walk to the next snow source. But all joking aside, it's alarming. It's scary what's happening. And, I live in a tinderbox where we had 3 rain events this summer, which is highly unusual. We usually have a bit of a monsoon season. And I'm just experiencing things like this that move me to want to make a difference, that move me to want to get the word out, to motivate other people who care about the outdoors and what we're passionate about to do something about it, because it's not too late by any means to make a difference. If we can turn this ship around with this election, I think we're going to be doing well. And I'll just wanted to throw this in because it's very clear. I can't imagine anyone on this presentation is unaware of greenhouse gases and the issues that we have with all the heat and carbon that's bouncing back into our atmosphere with causing the warming. And this photo here, this aspect of the Earth is showing the Arctic, which hopefully you've seen some videos of the deteriorating ice in the Arctic, and what used to be considered impassable not a century ago is now commonly passed through with ships. And we're at risk of losing this Arctic ice, which reflects the sun back, reflects the heat back into the atmosphere. And once we lose that, and the oceans are not covered by these bodies of ice in Antarctica and around Greenland, we're at significant risk of very accelerated heating of our oceans. And it's going to be hard to really get that cooled down again. So it's just imperative that we motivate and activate ourselves. And I love that POW has created a state for us, the outdoor state. And, we're 5 million people strong, and we contribute to almost $9 million economy that is a huge economy in the United States. It far surpasses a lot of the causes of greenhouse gas emissions. And I just really want us to realize what power that we have when we join together and we come together and we can get out the vote and we can rally together. And one of the amazing things I think of guides is we always were hesitant to have those conversations that were political, or that were religious, or that maybe went somewhere that was uncomfortable, or we talked about social issues and social justice. And that day's changed. We can't not have those conversations anymore. And I want to rally all of us to have those conversations. And what I think was really brilliant with POW, this was our first POW Climb meeting in Bozeman this last year in December. And what POW did is they recognized that in the battleground states, the margins were super small. And that gave us a lot of hope, because as climbers, we're really good in the margins. We perform really well in the margins, and all those battleground states have a lot of climbers and a lot of people that historically haven't been that active in voting. And so we're really trying to activate you out there in the battleground states, and everybody, just to make a plan to get out and vote. It's the right thing to do. And we're in crisis mode right now. So stand for your playground, make a plan. If you love the land, make a plan. And with that, I'll leave it. And thank you for hanging in there and listening to my stories. It's been an honor. And Graham, you want to come on back on?
Angela, it was awesome. I love seeing those photos in the Cascades, which is where I actually grew up climbing as well. And one of my initial climbing experiences was actually with American Alpine Institute, who you're talking about, with Mark Allen as the guide, and I was a client with
Love
two
it.
parents. Yeah, my folks were freaked out about me going rock climbing in high school. So oh no!
I guess they've gotten used to it.
Well, yeah, I think that they were gonna try to get it out of my system, is what they tell me now, but it kind of backfired.
And my mom still claims she picked up the wrong kid at the hospital.
That's awesome. Well, I love these stories. I love seeing that comparative imagery from the Cascades as well. And one of the reasons I've been really excited about your presentation here is because you exist on the intersection between industry and these areas of these parts of our planet that are changing most rapidly, the Arctic and high altitude areas. And you exist there not only as a mountain guide, but also as a representative and a leader of your mountain guiding community. So I think the first thing I want to ask is, I reckon there are a lot of mountain guides here at this conversation. And so somebody who is a mountain guide, who is using these mountains as, their place to both play and work, also has the ability to potentially interface with clients. What are some tips you might provide to other mountain guides and ways that they can affect change and drive policy change and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Graham. Well, really, it's educating ourselves and opening our eyes to the big picture of not just our little bubble of I'm the guide, but me as someone who has a platform in a remarkable place that everybody loves, our mountains, is an opportunity to really have some of these hard conversations. And I think that what's really important with this is you don't have to be an expert. And I mean, I'm clearly not an expert in science, and that's not my thing, but I see through my experience, I know what's going on in the world, and I can ask more questions than have more answers. And I think that's always a good way to approach our conversations with people that are, that we need to influence in a positive way because maybe they just don't believe. I think asking questions is a great way to uncover things instead of feeling like an expert. And as a guide, you can't be the best at everything. And our job is to keep our clients safe and entertained and bring them home at night and have a great experience. So that's all part of it now.
I love that. And something that you and I have talked about a lot is that the most powerful tool that we have is our stories, just like you've demonstrated to us with your stories about climbing all over the world. And all of the guides or climbers on this talk right now have stories that relate directly to our changing climate. And even without telling somebody who to vote for or what policies to agree with or kind of getting into the nitty gritty, you can share your stories, and that can drive change.
Yeah, I would just add that we've turned into such a tech. I mean, when I did the majority of my work in the North Cascades, I didn't even have a cell phone. There certainly wasn't Facebook. I had to buy a cell phone to work for Exum Mountain Guides, which was a little flip top. Still wasn't really big doing an email. And I just really want to encourage us to take some time when we get back from trips or whatever, instead of going right to social media, take some time to put those photographs together and really look at things and think about the experience rather than just getting sucked into the machine, because it's the heartbeat, right?
Oh yeah, we got to spend time with these experiences because they matter.
Yeah.
And these places are changing. Yeah. So speaking of one of those places is changing a lot, we got a question about Antarctica and guiding Antarctica and kind of building that in with conservation work as well. And I'm wondering if you just tell us a little more about the time you spent down there, maybe some of the folks you've interfaced with and some of the things you've seen.
Yeah, it's my favorite place in the world. There's no place I've experienced wilderness like that. It's just stark. It's like everything is so real and consequential, and it's like you never know what's going to happen from when the wind will shift and you're stuck in the ice, or the ice will go out and you can't get to where you want to go, and it's just everything changes dramatically from 1 minute to the next. And I think for me, I'm such a nature lover that the aesthetic of the place is just remarkable. The juxtaposition with the ice and the water and the rock and the wildlife and the dramatic nature of the weather. But it attracts people that are remarkable. And, they're people that love nature because they clearly have to spend a lot of money to get to Antarctica. To have an experience like that. And the people that come on our trip are incredibly successful. They've been successful in their careers because they have enough money to do it, and they have enough time off to do it. And they also come with just a high level of intelligence and awareness of themselves and the world and the planet around them. And so for me, spending time with the people on that trip, even though I'm a bit of an introvert and we're on a ship together for like 12 days, it's a remarkable part of the trip. And where I've learned so much about Antarctica, not just my visual observations, but is through the naturalists that are the ship staff who go down there. They're like me on Mount Baker, time and time again. They'll do like 10 trips in a season. And so over 10 trips a season, over decades of time, many of these naturalists have seen remarkable changes that they're able to articulate to us in the evenings and when we're out on Zodiac rides. And a lot of the changes that they're noticing that are really dramatic are in the wildlife. The response to the wildlife with the decreasing ice, which is causing a decrease in krill, which is the number one food source of most of the creatures down there. And that's a huge thing. The size of the icebergs they've remarked on, with a lot of these large sheets calving off. And so what's, I think, great about this trip is that everybody that goes on that trip comes back an ambassador for Antarctica. And, that's what people should do for wherever they go. But it captivates everybody's imagination, and their experiences are something like they'd never had. It's a trip of a lifetime.
That sounds amazing. And I think related to this, and I will hedge to say that this is something that you and I will have to spend a couple hours on at some point down the line. But you mentioned something at the beginning of your presentation that I did not know, which is that you have a master's in international mountain conservation, which is super rad. And I'm wondering if you just kind of give us a high level of like, what is that? That sounds amazing.
That's a really good question. It's what I made of it, and it was a degree at Prescott College. It was a self-driven project that I saw myself going towards, because most of my expeditions had service work components to it, and a large part of that was figuring out how can we conserve these places that we love. And it evolved around an Everest expedition that I was on in '98 with another professor at Prescott College, two professors from Prescott College, and I created a service learning endeavor for undergraduate college students to join us on the expedition. And I set up service learning work for them while we were on the mountain. And then I carried out a cleanup on Everest and paid our Sherpa to remove oxygen bottles and stuff. So that was kind of the mechanics of. I was a faculty at Prescott College at the time. It was an opportunity to get my master's degree with a project. It was something that I really wanted to do, was to take these students with us and have this great service component to the expedition. And where will that take me? I think, I don't know, maybe I'll work for the UN or something like that when I retire as a guide. I think there's all kinds of neat things I can do. And one of the things that I'm really psyched to be able to do as the president of the IFMGA is to interface with the other presidents of the other 23 IFMGA member associations around the world. And we have a lot of these discussions. And I'm on the Environmental and Access Commission of the IFMGA, where we're developing platforms for international guides to have more of a educational, like an environmental focus as part of their guide training platform. And we do that here. We focus heavily. We partner with Leave No Trace, and we do a lot of education just on the fly in the mountains. But with the IFMGA, a lot of these countries haven't really dove in there yet. So it's a real cool opportunity for me to do some of that work.
That's rad. And you answered that you may go do something with that master's and work for the UN, but it sounds to me like you're really utilizing that now. And having you on the POW squad and having you at the head of our primary mountain guiding association in the United States it's really cool. Thank you for doing that. And the last question I have for you is, if maybe you've already voted, and if you have, you can tell me what your plan was. But what is your plan to vote?
I did vote, and thank you for asking. Yeah. My plan was to educate myself on the issues. Protect Our Winters Action Fund has a resource tool that I used, and there's quite a few local totally rad activists where I live that have helped come up with some resources for voting down the ballot. And for me, I mean, it's pretty clear the top level candidates who the right choices for our climate advocates, but farther down the line, farther down the ballot is a little more tricky. So I used some of my local kind of resources there to get the plan there, and I filled it up. I'm fortunately live in Colorado, so we automatically get our ballots mailed to us. And rather than stick it in the mail, I just took it to Ouray, the drop box, and that was my plan. And I can't remember ever feeling more proud as an American to have my voice as in the pool.
It does feel good, doesn't it?
It felt really good, better than it has ever, really.
I love hearing that, and I feel the same way. And I think I've seen in the chat that we have folks from the 3rd District of Colorado. We have folks from New Hampshire. We have folks from North Carolina and a whole bunch of other places. And a lot of these areas are battleground states where your vote matters a lot. So get it in. Make sure your friends and your family get it in. This one matters. And I think Angela, that's kind of what I've got for you. Unless there's anything else you want to share.
No, I'd say just get out early. Get your vote in, because polls are probably going to continue to be long. So get it done. Get
it done. Oh yeah, and with that, we're going to send you off to the Make a Damn Plan website, and we're going to sign off.
Thanks, Graham. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for PAL for having us. This has been awesome. You kick ass, Angela. Can't wait to see you soon.
You too, Graham. Thanks.
All right, we'll sign off in 3, 2, 1.
Started to understand that amplifying our voices and getting people out to vote is the only thing that we can do fast enough to kind of solve these major issues.